members. So when you become a member, you get a key card and you beat yourself in, and you get plugged into a community, and you get plugged into a network. No Future Without Art is a training where we talk about what is the role of the black creative in the movement. What is the role of the black poet, the black sculptor, the black dancer? What ideas do we have to contribute to grassroots organizing? And it's just a joy, and it's fun to be in community with your people and to think about these ideas. Yesterday we talked about a lot, didn't we? For folks who were here, we talked about a lot. Yes, indeed. Does anyone in this space, real quick, before we dive into introductions, just throw out a few reflections, things that resonated with them from yesterday for folks who were here, even a quote, an artist, something that stuck out? Yeah. Resurrection is an uprising. Resurrection is the uprising. So we heard a sermon from Dwayne Davis in Brooklyn Center, and it was beautiful. And remind us of your name. My name is Rio. Rio, yes. Any other sort of initial reflection from folks who were here yesterday, even folks on Zoom, folks who were here yesterday, things that resonated, stuck out, things that you heard? We talked about a lot yesterday. We talked about covenants, grace, service, and cooperation. You know, any reflections from folks on Zoom? Those who were here, things that you heard that resonated, that stuck out. Yes, I mean, we talked about a lot. So, as we get grounded in our second day, we have a lot to talk about. We touched on the idea of tactics in the movement, but I really want to expand that and think about strategies. To get us started, before we dive into everything, we have a lovely film crew with us who is going to be filming our second day and capturing some insights and the joy that is gathering your people. Do y'all want to quickly introduce yourselves? And yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate that. Absolutely. Is there a way we can maybe scoop? Yeah. I'd like to go over there. That'd be awesome. That'd be great. That'd be great. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. Appreciate folks arriving to the space. Welcome, welcome. Second day of No Future Without Art. So before we dive into our grounding, let's just get grounded and do a circle of intros. And what I want you to do is I want you to turn to someone. I want you to say your name. You can say your pronouns if you would like to. And today we're going to be talking about tactics and strategy. So I want you to think of what was the last piece of art that you experienced where the artist had a unique approach. In a song, in a movie, in a dance, could be something on Instagram, could have been something at a concert, it could have been a documentary you watched, because we're talking about tactics and approach. So turn to someone, say your name, you can say your pronouns if you would like to, and for folks on Zoom, check in with folks on Zoom. What is the last piece of art that you experienced where the artist had a unique approach? The way that they approached the song, the way that they approached the movie. Consider that and just check in with someone. Hopefully to have a conversation with yourself. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
I'm thinking about the unique approach.
Folks on Zoom, welcome to start off.
It's not going to screen. I think we probably just stay close to the side.
And yourself? I get tired of and I have a lot of those too because I don't have the technology experience as opposed to
All right, so I'll get it. Back.
Oh, well, I'm like,
Our powerful people, our black poets and writers and artists, tactics and strategies, the ways we approach our art, the ways we approach our audience. I would love to hear what came up in conversation. So if we could go around, and if we could say our names, you could say our pronouns if you would like to. And the last piece of art that we experienced where the artist had a unique approach, had a unique delivery. Anyone want to start us off real quick with this? We'll go right here. Let me just go around. Nice and loud.
Well, I don't know who the artist was at Dante Wright's funeral, but I think he was the same artist at George Floyd's funeral, and he approaches his artwork from the reverse. He paints upside down, and you never know what he's going to do, until it's done, and then he'll flip the canvas and his artwork. So I thought that was a unique approach to how he views his artwork, in reverse.
Yeah, it's important that we get experience that art even in the moments of such grief, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is junior, he, him, his, Black Lives Matter, Serto, like my whole name. He just say Black Lives Matter every day. And Serto is my superhero. They have a superpower that's not going to fit in that. Anyway. there's this person who's a photographer who does so much work
Yes,
that
yes,
interprets like the landscape in
Yes,
such a way
yes.
that there's color and structure,
yeah.
and it just shows up as a piece of art, and it becomes being something that you walk by. So I'm really struck by
There you
the
go.
photographer. Wow.
Yeah, I love that. I love you doing that. That was awesome. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
I was really talking about, I use teenage and I was talking about John Monet. I think that he was such a beautiful artist, singer, dancer, like visual artist, like even just not listening to her music and just looking at the videos that she posts going into her music is beautiful. And I love her art and her
Yes, indeed, Janelle Monáe. Absolutely, absolutely. Appreciate you. Peace. My name is Imagine Zoe. I use gender fluid pronouns. When I talked about Janae Aiko, I think that she makes music that is so spiritually sound, but it's still cool. It's full of quotables. She has a song called Ho, but it's the acronym for happiness over everything. It's my happiness over everything. You not heard of her? Yeah, she's fire.
I used to play that and I think I was just thinking about just the kind of art that we're seeing at the square and all the different expressions of art that are there and how, I'm elaborating, but how some of it, like, it showed up last summer and so after winter, like, you know, what's going to happen next, is the artist's going to come back and also just how people, you know, can show up there and really stand in their truth and speak powerfully, I think. I'm just really amazed by the art in that space and the artists.
These sites of struggle can also be sites of fun and joy. Absolutely, art reminds us of that. Absolutely.
I'm Razan, or most people know me by RZ. I go by her pronouns are he, him. Artist I thought of was New Black City, specifically Yoni Light, I know. Very dope dancers, so I just appreciated their self-expression and the way they can just move, freestyle, whatever. I've seen them perform live. We did perform at George Floyd Square too recently, and I saw her music video, so they just always provide no movement and just neat abilities.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Sini. She, her pronouns. I thought of Lil Nas X because I was listening to Call Me By Your Name this morning. The inclusion of religion and sexuality and everything with the music video. I thought that was great.
Absolutely. CD just joined the Black Art staff, so I appreciate you being here participating today.
My name is Tyzacia Hope, but you can just call me Ty. She and her is going to go by. And I chose Maya Angelou. Excuse me. Is it Angelo or Angelou? Please correct me. Okay, thank you. I've been reading a lot of her books lately. I've been going through a lot in life, so I've been picking up books a lot. And the way that she connects to me as an African American woman, it's unique to me. It touches my soul. So.
Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Georgia. My pronouns are she and her. And one thing, a person that I think is very artistic in a way is Cardi B. I know that's kind of weird. One is like she embraces her feminine side and has voices for everybody instead of you know, just like
my name is Jakar, and somebody that influenced me in an artistic way is Kyrie Irving, because he plays basketball, but he still helps out the community, and he still helps out where he came from.
Absolutely. I love that you think about sports as an art, as a craft. That's cool.
My name is Capri. She, her, hers. The new artist that I had in mind was Beyonce. Just thinking about how after I'm Sasha Fierce and she dropped her dad as a manager,
she just decided to, instead of doing more commercial things, just decided to, as an artist, really just like do what she wanted to do in her life. That inspired me, like, you know, just create music you believe in. So her answer is Beyonce.
My name is Rio, go by Yi Him. And the last piece of art that I saw that was impactful to me was it's called Kill All the Brutes. It's on HBO Max. Yeah. What's the artist's name? I forget. Well, it was just like really dope how he told the story of basically the impact of like white supremacy and the ideology of it. And he used like documentary, he used reenactment, he used drawings, animation, and just like even clips of himself. So I just thought it was really cool.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I went all the way back to the Civil Rights Movement because that's when I grew up. And I like Harry Belafonte. And the reason why I like Harry Belafonte is because he was a political activist along with a lot of the other activists. And he had this, it's never too late to go back and get it, Sankofa. And that is something that is still coming and resonating right now in this generation. It goes century to century. It started a movement, and the movement is getting stronger again. It never went away because it's everywhere, all over the world, all over the country. And its symbol is both graphic and musical, and it's in every spectrum. And the symbol is usually a bird with an egg falling off the back of its back. And the bird looking back means it's never too late to go back and get it. Because it's never too late to go back and get knowledge. It's never too late to go back and get your culture. It's never too late. So I like Harry Belafonte and the whole movement of the civil rights movement of the 60s and coming into the 70s. And yes, I'm an activist.
Yes, my name is Maya Bonnie Cliff. The person that really impressed me, his name is Gerald Griffin. He's a master artist out of Chicago. And I've always been impressed with his work. And he started talking about the paradigm shift before all this kind of stuff kind of happened. And I just like the way he embraces the pain in it. You can see it. With every brushstroke, he's also a sculptor, and then he also, with his work, tells the story, throughout the century within that, but the one painting, several paintings. So that's what really impressed me.
Yes, absolutely. Appreciate those check-ins. For folks on Zoom, if we can say our names, our pronouns, and the last piece of art we experienced where the artist had a unique approach. Anyone want to take it away? One time, maybe? Whoever wants to take it away.
Okay. I think a couple people put theirs in the chat. I assume that's because they prefer to put it that way, so I don't know if those need to be read out or what protocol is, but that's there. My name is Lou, 6 names, 6 strings, ask about it. He, they, pronouns. I thought about 2 things. I thought about Kara Walker in terms of of all time, Kara Walker is a big deal. For those who don't know, Kara Walker is a visual artist who does a lot of things with I forget what they call it. It's not profiles, but the shadows you make an art. Silhouettes. There you go. Thank you. She does a lot of work with silhouettes, and showed a lot of, and just did that with Black people, in terms of our history, and shows a lot of different images over time of us. Most recently, there's this artist called Breakins, who somebody put me onto the other day, and it's just brilliant fusion work that I've always thought about but have never seen done before. And so it's kind of emo pop metal-ish vibes with trap and like, it's not screaming, but it's like a really like hard, intense voice that's really like light at the same time in terms of pitch. It's like this tiny white kid, like all these different things you would never expect in an artist, but it like really hits my soul really well. So yeah, thinking about those two.
Genres. Absolutely. Appreciate that. Anyone else, folks on Zoom? Artists that had a unique approach.
Yeah, I'll go. Laura, she, her, hers. Also, you can find me on Instagram, Laura.the.creative. And I would say that I have a fascination with design. And so this isn't like very recent. However, I wanted to throw his name out there. There's a landscape architect by the name of Walter Hood, and he does phenomenal like outdoor spaces, really ensuring that we're being mindful of the space that was there before, and then how humans actually in kind of approach the space, and being mindful of making sure that we're also adhering to what nature is supposed to do and how we can kind of co-create in different spaces. And so I am really fascinated by his work. And then music also is a huge kind of like inspiration to me too. And so another person that I've just been like geeking out on some of his work or some of their work is what's his name? Oh God, I'm blanking. I can see his face. God. What's his name? He sang shit. I'm so blanking on his name. I'm so mad. I'll pop it in the chat if I can remember. But there's another one, I'm thinking local, Mike. He does a phenomenal job with frequencies. He put out a meditation mixtape with a couple of other local creatives. And so his work is just dope.
Okay, appreciate that, Laura. Thank you for being here. Absolutely. Any other folks on Zoom? Artists who had a unique approach want to check in one time? Any other folks?
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Hi there. My name is Hussein, and an artist I tend to love his work is Temi Coca, and his unique approach was from going from photography and going to this abstract visual design. For me, that was a unique approach for me. I was identified with his work because there are a lot of colors and vibrancy, and he really takes his work to a different level. And as an artist and a designer, from that point of view, I tend to love his work, and that's something I would love to incorporate into my work too as well. So, and also in terms of artists, music is also a huge part of me. I tend to listen reggae because they tend to speak to you in terms of the diaspora, and as well as Masego and Temi, Toby Nikube, and all other dope black artists. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we just got word from Laura that the person she was thinking about was Moses Sumi. I'm saying that right. Awesome. I'm gonna go to Simon real quick. If you want to check in.
Sure, yeah. Hey, my name is Sun. My pronouns are she, her, they. And an artist, I just love all of the artist names. I have to check them out. You can follow me on, or find me on Instagram at Sunchild1. So a lot of my art kind of revolves around movement, and someone that I'm really interested right now that I'm looking at, his name is Tommy the Clown. He does a lot of crumping. And it's really something that I've been like really looking at, especially like engaging the youth back into like movement and like ancestral type movements and stuff like that. And so I've been really interested in like kind of like doing like I suppose like school revivals, or not revivals, but like school where like kids are able to kind of like dance and get kind of creative with that. So I just feel like interested in his work lately.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I know. How many pounds is everything? Thank you.
Appreciate those check-ins, people. appreciate those check-ins. So we have a packed schedule for y'all today. We're gonna have quilt making. We're gonna have a panel discussion. We're gonna have a writing workshop. We're gonna have lunch, and all these things. And to dive into that agenda, we're gonna start off with grounding by Imagine Joy, who's gonna lead us in some grounding, get us connected to the earth, get us connected to our bodies and our hearts and our imagination. So I'm going to pass it to Imagine Joy one time.
You're gonna move my chair. All right, beautiful morning, Black people. We're gonna sit down. Everyone can sit right now. This invitation is always to leave where you are today. If sitting is the most accessible thing, please feel free to remain seated. Seated. All right, there we go. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is just rub our palms together, create a little bit of heat. And then really get into it. Feel the work of rubbing your palms together, make them faster and faster, like you're lighting a fire. And then take them and place them over your eyes or near your eyes. Just encouraging the eyes to sink back towards the skull. Moving very softly and very gently into your back space. Allow yourself to breathe into the warmth of your hands, making contact. If you would like, you keep your hands there or bring them to another area of your body that just wants to feel a little bit of heat or warmth. Let's just take a couple of moments to breathe. If you would like, you keep your eyes shut or your gaze internally directed. I'm going to give you two invitations. The first is finding some language, some words, some sounds, or any thought or idea that allows you to bring your creative genius into the room. What affirms your genius? Maybe that means remembering when your great-grandmother said, "You are special." Maybe that means hearing the words of Maya Angelou saying that you were created to thrive. How can you affirm your genius in this moment? And then I invite you to call a spiritual mentor into the room, which can mean a bunch of different things. Maybe that means thinking about an ancestor. Maybe that means thinking about someone that inspired you or that walks with you. Calling a spiritual mentor in the room to move with you today. If you want to continue taking your time with that, but for the rest of us who are ready to move, I invite you to very slowly and gently stand up, making your way to your feet. We're going to do two things since we're a little wise today. Okay. We're just going to start with our head and dance into this thing called roll down. So it's articulating the spine, rolling down from the top of your head and going through the entire back. So upper back, middle back, lower back, and hinging at the hips. Going down as far as you can go. If you touch the floor if you can, it's okay. But here we go. We're just going to do 8 roll downs, starting from the top. Rolling down, softening the neck, softening the upper back, middle back, lower back. Hinging at the hips. And from here, you take a slight arch at the bottom, and then roll through the spine, coming back up to stand right on top of yourself. Moving at your own timing, here we go. Connecting the movement with your breath, feeling free to bend the knees at any point. Again, the invitation to find an arch at the bottom, and then being suctioned up by the back space. 2 more times, and rolling down. Connecting the movement with your breath. Each breath is precious and miraculous. Never be created again. Fourth time, rolling down, softening the body. Feeling your feet rooted into the earth. Taking one more arch. That feels good. Now I want you just to brush your thighs. And you're going to reach back behind you. Taking the arms up and over. You're just going to curl forward, just like we did a second ago, this time not going down as far. We'll do that 8 times. My thought like this to reach behind you. Sometimes I think we've lost information. To bring it up and over you, so that's moving forward into your future. Maybe you want to look behind you, like actually look. Two more times. Really allowing the chest to open, the heart to expand as you come up and over. And the last time, you're just going to stay hovered over one last time. And from here, we're just going to find a gentle sway, rocking right and left, right and left. And then coming up, maintaining that sway. And as you get to your feet, you can make this sway more personal. Maybe it wants to be a little bit more groovy. Maybe it wants to be a little bit more of a circle. Maybe it wants to be a little more of a shape. What does it mean to have your sway today? And then it turns into a little shake, a little shimmy. You want to brush your shoulder off. And then just take a moment to stand. And as it feels right, you can gently make your way back to seating. We're just going to take 3 deep breaths together, and then we're going to move on to the rest of the day. 3 deep breaths. The first breath is for you. The second breath is for this community. All the people that are not here today, all the people that played a part in creating this space. The third breath is for the larger community, which can be as vast as your imagination. Maybe that means thinking about the cosmos. I love you, my friends. All right, here we go. First breath is for you. Inhaling, filling yourself with life. And then exhaling, allowing the body to soften into that expansion. The second breath is for this community. Inhaling. And exhaling, releasing the breath. The third breath is for the larger community. Inhaling. And holding the breath at the top. And when it feels right for you to release that breath, I want you to do it slowly. Maybe you can make an assistant sound. If you chose to close your eyes, I invite you to open your eyes and make contact with one person in the room. They may or may not see you making contact with them. In this particular moment where we are not allowed to touch, we need to understand and recognize that visions, seeing each other, looking in the eye, that is a form of contact, that is a form of touch. So touch someone today. Knowing that we are all here with the intention of creating a new future, a new world. So see who we are creating this world with. What's around you? What are the ingredients? Where's the magic? And I'm going to lovingly pass this back over to Kino.
Can we give it up for that grounding anyone? Absolutely, it's so important to get grounded in this work. The ideas that we're talking about are not simple ideas, so we need to be connected to the earth. We need to be connected to our ancestors. Grounding helps us do that. So as we move on, what I would love for us to do is to get into groups of 3. 3, that would be amazing. If we could just get into clusters of 3, that would be great. Clusters of 3 or 4, doesn't matter. If we could just find our clusters real quick, if we could just take a moment to find our clusters. Folks on Zoom, make sure you have something to write with and write on. If we could just take a few moments to get our clusters together, get our groups together, that would be great.
Well, sure.
I didn't know that.
All right, powerful people.
I know you have to be the photographer.
Finding our people. Yes, indeed.
Be the flexible trio.
So, getting into our clusters. So yesterday we talked about covenants, ground rules. Does anyone who is here want to give a brief recap of whatever they remember around what were the covenants and a little bit about what they were about before we move on? Anyone just want to reflect on what came up? We talked about grace, service, cooperation. Anyone want to give a brief recap of what grace, service, and cooperation, just anything that stuck out to them about those ideas? Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the 3 covenants: grace, service, and cooperation. And with the first was grace was the social movement, not withholding judgment. And then service was talking about the daily task. And then the cooperation is taking care of each other. And our group yesterday, our grace is not being afraid. And cooperation was a lot. Just encouraging and sharing and gleaning and integrity and solidarity. I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah. All good things. All good things. Grace, service, cooperation. So today we're going to unpack and dive into tactics a little bit. So if someone in your group could come get a large notepad, that would be awesome. Whoever wants to come get the large notepad, if we have more. And we have markers, and Al right there has some more. Markers, yes.
There's a different
options for markers. All right. So, all right. So, people, we're going to be talking about strategies, tactics, and approach. So, strategies, tactics, and approach. So the second question was what, right? The last piece of art we experienced where the artist had a unique approach. What I want you to do is, and today we're going to be looking at the work of a community organizer, Saul Lazinski, who came to us by way of Chicago in the 1930s. Anyway, he defines tactics simply as doing what you can with what you have. That's a tactic. Doing what you can with what you have is a tactic. What I want you to do in your group, in your clusters, is list all the tactics you can think of that's available to community. Just anything that comes to mind. Or artists, tactics, ways of approach. Doing what you can with what you have. When was the last time a community member and creative just did something uniquely with what they have? Ways Black folks do this, ways creatives do this, ways community organizers do this. What are our tactics? You know, it could be door knocking, it could be a fundraiser, it could be writing, it could be spoken word, it could be food, it could be all of these things. What tactics are available to us? What are the unique ways we do what we can with what we have? Just think about that and list them in your clusters. Well, and for folks on Zoom, just take some time to reflect by yourself. The ways we do what we can with what we have. As artists, as community organizers.
Yes.
Tactics, doing what we can with what we have. What are the ways we do this?
No, I'm seeing an artist. Thank you. There we go.
So like, like free. I'm using advanced tactics. Maybe there's a broader chapter shared.
What's up? Prayer. She said, we got prayer.
Even amongst my friends, usually I'm the one that's like boosting
I'm snooping in on your conversation. Can you speak up so we can hear?
So one of the tactics we thought of was when you don't have hot water running in the house, what are you going to do? You know, you take the pot, boil the water, get your water running, wash your clothes, do whatever you want to do. do instead of dealing with the cold water. Or if the water's not working in the toilet, you have to take whatever excess water you have and rush it down to, to make a way. So
I also see out here struggle meals and athletes not having gym space but finding space in areas to study it better.
yeah. So you want to explain that one? Speak up.
So a while ago, so she used to train me. Well, she still does, but she used to train me, and we ended up not having space. So we kept looking for gym, we couldn't find any. So we went to my basement and started working out like 3 hours a day. And until the summer came, and then we started working outside.
Struggle meals.
You want to talk? Tell us about the struggle meals.
So basically, what that means is basically you get mad or whatever you already had it and just made it into your because we didn't have at that time so we just
What is an example?
Noodles. Let's think back, like the hot dogs and beans, or what's another one? Sandwich and chips. Anything. Some people do serve sandwiches or grilled cheese. Anything to make tortilla and cheese. Just find anything to make a way.
Can I snoop in on you guys' conversation? What type of things are you guys discussing?
Different tactics that we thought of was like things along the lines like music, like lyrics, music videos, live performances, social media, Instagram, stories, posts, DMs, nature. Honestly, we kind of said like almost everything we do in a sense is almost like a tactic, even if we realize it is or not, just because it has some type of influence, kind of how we maneuver. Right.
Can I snoop in on your conversation?
You know, like even in the protest, those are so heavy. But also resistance
We can bring it back.
Are you from here?
All right. So I would love to hear what came up. So again, Saul Lazinski, Chicago community worker, defines tactics as doing what you can with what you have. Right? Starting with the folks on Zoom, I would love for us to hear what came up for y'all. What are the unique ways Black folks do what we can with what we have to keep our power, to build our power? What are the unique ways we do what we can with what we have? Whoever on Zoom wants to take it away. All right.
I didn't realize that there were some students on. Yeah, great. Good show. I thought about a lot of things, but I think it comes down to, as it always seems to for me, like the work of people who are not men in Black culture. So like I think about all the things I learned about how to be resourceful. And a lot of that is around like food, how you get your basic needs met, and like how we present ourselves. So I thought a lot about how we distribute food. We're all always feeding people in a lot of different ways, right? Transportation, carpooling. Like one of the first things that I think gets talked about in a lot of like campaigns, especially when you talk about voting and things like that. Always gathering people to get people to where they need to go, especially when people are not able to like get to where they need to go by themselves. I think a lot about hair. I think a lot about how we present ourselves, like clothes, nails, makeup, like all the ways in which, if you specifically think about like Black people who are invested and connected to those types of expressions based in like Black feminist / Black womanhood, however that works, however the best way to say that is. So I think a lot about those posts that you see a bit nowadays, like love of the girl from the hood who like, you know, picks up her earrings at the beauty supply down the street, things of that nature. There's like a post that runs around like that, that's like a poem or something. And so I think a lot about that. I think a lot about the whole making something out of nothing and the ways in which that has defined our culture in this country. The ways in which when somebody tells us we can't do something, we just invent another way to do the thing we want to do. So you could like run that all the way back to when our people were enslaved and we kind of took our spiritual systems and really made our own branch of what is now considered like Christianity, but we all know the roots of that. Like when we talk about church, like church and the Black church are two different things. Like we did that, you know? So I think a lot about resourcefulness. I think a lot about how that plays out in our creativity and then everyday life. There's countless, you know, moments in our history, whether it's through movements or just through need, where folks have organized, you know, obviously Black Panthers is a great example, you know, breakfast for kids, like blah, 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 you know, all these different types of things that usually Black women and or just like Black men in general were doing the work of. So like there's a lot of pictures out there that I come across a lot of times that's like, you know, shows pictures of like men next to like the bags of like free food program and things like that. But who do you think put that food together? Like who do you think did that? You know? So that's where the list kind of found itself. And
Absolutely. Mutual aid and the way women and things have been at the forefront of mutual aid, and that's its own kind of front lines. Absolutely. Anyone else on Zoom wanna?
You know, so when you talked about the tactics, doing what you can, what you have, I thought about, I think Luke kind of went over the madness, but I'm gonna say guerrilla tactics. When colonialism was happening in Africa, the way that the citizens of Africa, the way they went about how to find their own independence, so through guerrilla tactics of, you know, the tools that they had, and they fought, and that's how they came to be their own independence, and how that's how they got to be independent and be free from the white man. And I think was a very a tactical approach on how to do what you have in terms of to get your freedom, and I think that's how I thought about it. And in terms of an artisan as a designer, I think art supplies you can do better and speak more in terms of expression, and I think all of that. Yeah.
Absolutely, and there's so much to say about guerrilla tactics. We looked at the work of Toni Cade Bambara yesterday, who was from Harlem and who was a social worker. One of my favorite books in the world is one of her books called Gorilla My Love. Right, so she took a military term and turned it into a social community practice. When we think about guerrilla tactics, we're thinking about small scale experimental, flexible, able to adapt clusters of soldiers doing a thing, right? And the artist said, "Gorilla, my love," you know. So there's a lot to say about guerrilla tactics. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's go to folks in this space. What are some tactics available to us? I'm going to start with that group back there. Yeah, nice and loud.
So I chose scribble mills, and to my knowledge, back in the day, black folks got what white people didn't want. Is that correct? Like chitlins, big feet, because we will want that, you know? And we made something that bad, into something, you know, that's what I'm talking about. Some people still like it, but we still make a way out of it. I'm gonna think that you know, when you don't have food in the house, you're gonna sit in the house and not eat. You know, you don't come up with something. So some things are like hot dogs and beans that was or beans and rice. It's kind of something to survive. That's survival mode. When I think of tactic, I think of if there's a will, there's a way. So you're gonna make a way out of something, and then you're gonna share the athlete and speak up.
So a while ago, me and my sister didn't have a gym, so she could train me. So we kept finding the gym, and we didn't have any gym space. So we went to my basement and we started working out 3 hours a day until the summer came, and then we started working out outside.
We to tell a little bit more about the story. We had gym space at one point that was given to us, and I was working at a school. The way the school was being ran at one point, we had to leave the gym. It was winter time. Rec centers are, you know, there's stuff going on. Gyms are free. We could have sat down, like, we'll just wait till the summer comes. But instead, you know, he really wanted it. So we made it happen. He sat in the gym, in his basement, and just dribbled the ball. Instead, he could have chose not to do anything. There's well and well.
Tactics that allow us to walk this way like each other for ourselves and absolutely do what we have. Appreciate it. I'm going to go to that group. Nice and loud, nice and loud.
Some tactics that we thought of. I'll start here. We kind of had movement here, so I thought about yoga, like meditation and stuff like that. So like gathering up like that. When you think of my friend Chance York, he used to do like my brother's heel, so he used to bring in black men together to do yoga. So that popped up. Music, whether it comes down to just the production itself, like the composition or the lyrics, music videos, etc. That all comes away. And then even along with that, like I said, writing, so even like books, poetry, things along that line. And then the big one for me, I think we talked about it earlier, like mutual aid. So doing things like those food drives, clothing drives, distributions, donations in general. So just stuff like that help bring the community together. Some stuff that I thought of.
Absolutely. Mutual aid and cooperation. Absolutely. Anyone else have anything to add?
Well, first thing popped into my head was like Instagram, like outreach in that way. So like just connecting with people because their stories are told. Then I thought about like film and photos, like so, you know, if you have a camera, even if it's just you in your room, like filming that and posting it somewhere to inspire somebody to do something different. And then I thought about just asking questions when you don't have answers. And when nobody's giving you answers, when you just do what you want anyway, create answers for yourself and take the space.
Yeah, I was really big on performance. I was part of Theater for Social Change in college. I did that for a summer. So it's a great way to educate and get people excited. Like it's a creative way to like get information out and still have people engaged.
Appreciate it. I'm going to go to the next group right here. Take it away. Nice and loud.
Well, we have a lot of different things. We have food. Food's a big one. How we feed one another. Potluck, eating, drawing, preparing, circles. The different ways we create circles. I thought about dance circles. This in itself is a circle. Art, sharing art. The process and how the process is actually the most enriching part of the experience. You see the product, but the process is what gives you the tools, the gifts, the insights. Prayer, and prayer not in the traditional sense, but prayer as Octavia Butler talks, ancestor Octavia Butler talks about it. You pray within to activate yourself. So you're using those words and things that you are reaching out for to move you in this now. Conversation, listening. You cannot have a conversation without listening. Cultivating imagination. Bell Hooks tells us that you can't create what you can't imagine. Education, teaching, sustaining one another, and then the alchemy of laughter and joy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Appreciate it. Imagination, absolutely. Appreciate that. I'm gonna go right
The tactics we use were feeding, sharing food, learning, community gardening, performance arts, spoken word, through sports, organizing through sports and getting messaging out through that, faith-based preaching, more messaging with door knocking, social media, and public speaking, repurposing like clothing.
Yeah, like you talk about hand-me-down, but sometimes just like your neighbor needs to get a coat that you aren't going to use anymore. All those things that have happened for years.
Visual expression, i.e. graffiti.
So even tagging is like a part of how we are marking our presence to things.
And feeling like you're engaging other people and hearing their story and sharing your story.
And the big one is child care. We always take care of the children, and the children take care of us. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I love that graffiti came up. And it's funny because, in a sense, a lot of these tactics have guerrilla qualities. That is, that they are small scale, they are easy, they are prone to flexibility, right? So it's just interesting that these things just come naturally to us, right? Doing what we can with what we have, these tactics, these strategies come naturally to us. I'm going to go to the last group.
So we came up with a phrase encouraging others to do what they feel is right to do, like through social media and even just personal, from peer to peer. Service and volunteering, trading art with other artists, and even just services and whatnot, giving back to people and whatnot. And then workshops, free workshops, showing people different crafts and whatnot, and even some of them just living now, just healing workshops and whatnot, meditation, yoga, breath work, and social gatherings, potlucks, small events, even just with music, dance, charity work. What's the like clothes that you don't have, giving back, donating, and reading circles is one that kind of like stuck out to me. What Donna said was down here. She's talked about just the reading circles, having them in museums, libraries, and something.
Absolutely, absolutely. I so appreciate these tactics, and we talk about building community power. How do these come into holding events for these tactics? What does a clothing exchange look like? How do we create spaces for struggle meals or child care, or this is how these tactics builds that sort of community cooperation. So let's take a 5-minute break and then come back. Feel free to stretch, feel free to get some coffee, use the restroom. Let's take a 5-minute break, then we'll meet back here to continue this conversation on tactics and cooperation. Folks, on Zoom, 5-minute break, and I'll see y'all in a little bit.
It's a coffee machine.
Yes, the chai is good. We still need to get some more from vanilla, but the chai is good.
Oxygen is different. It's kind of only so many shots you can get each time, and I can't audio. So I'll just kind of like move around when it feels right. I'm not in your way, am I? No, but please tell me if I'm in yours. Oh, I really need to steal your chair. I was trying to tell you that's interesting, but I haven't.
I'm so impressed with your setup. Yeah, so cool. It's a work in progress. Hey everyone, if you're tuned in, we are on a 5-minute break. Thank you for being here. This is No Future Without Art, Day 2. Going to do a few adjustments while we are on break. Feel free to get a drink, take a break, come on back.
You always hear it. People come by and go, yeah, we hear you in the public. Every party, I think, this one woman came by and said, so we hear every Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, thank you, that's when I'm long day here. Because I like my stuff quiet. It's a big animal. So don't you feel it too much? But you also do it. Like this, not this. Right? Or is
Mostly, last year we did most of the so this year we're going to go back to where they have one part.
This little neck thing, it's kind of weird. Like it can be way forward and way back, and then it just So it looks cool. I thought it would be great, but
It's a little bit too flexible, maybe.
yeah.
I mean, the whole rolling thing is so cool.
Yeah, I definitely
like a stand for your phone. I was like,
yeah, I definitely wanted that, but it's not perfect.
well. It's like you just need to design from here to here now.
Something better.
Something that's like, oh, can it just fit right down in there? I bet you could get like
It then just comes up.
like a top of a light stand, right? That just like you could screw it to the back of this and into here. That just has like a little elbow instead, so you're not actually doing that.
Like a light stand?
Like the top of one, or like a C-stand grabber, like just like the like the very top attachment that you can get on top, like on the edges of those. I'm thinking because it would fit right down in.
I'm not visualizing. Can you show me what you're talking about? You're talking about like this.
Yes.
This light.
Oh, do you want the cameras in it?
Oh.
I didn't know if you wanted to showcase them like they're here filming, on behalf of.
You can hold the camera if you want.
It's really sweet.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's just so that when I drop this photograph, you'll also see it.
No.
LinkedIn or one of those.
Do you want
Sure, why not?
I'll grab the camera and kind of look like it.
A little closer. Just come out. It's gonna be a post. So you can hold your camera. You can still hold your camera as part of
Yeah.
Just
So you want us to Oh no.
Listen, you break it, you buy.
I'm not buying anything. I'm done buying stuff. I buy diapers now. I'm out of it. All right. I think I'm gonna use this lens instead. I'd like to get a wider angle. I'm interested in participating.
Oh.
That's my desire. Learning.
This is cool.
I thought they were about to bring it back.
Yeah, that's fine. But one of
I mean, this is all safe.
sing that sweet Sadie song.
Yes.
But yeah, that's what am I doing?
I want one with the camera. If you're just tuning in, we're on a 5-minute break, and as we're on this break, I'm adjusting our English.
Those images are just stunning. I mean, stunning.
All right, y'all. Think about that.
That looks like a nice picture that I'm gonna bust around and go back in there. Yes. This chai is really good, I guess. Yes.
All right, powerful people. All right, folks. We're gonna bring it back. We're gonna bring it back. I'm gonna finish with our art.
Yeah.
Back. Yes. Okay.
Speak on for marking.
No future without art. As we get settled back in our seats. So, yesterday, one of the things that we noticed was that in a certain way, all social movements are spiritual movements, right? Harvard professor Roberto Unger says of religion, not activities that so much take place in the church, but a series of activities that capture the belief of a moment. And in a certain way, you know, these ideas of cooperation could be certain activities that capture the belief of the moment, right? I say that to say that we are going to listen to a thinker who has a lot to say about spirituality and social movement, James H. Cone. Have folks heard of that name before? James Cone, absolutely. Black power theologian from the 60s who did a tremendous amount of work about thinking about how to build black power through the black church and the like. And he wrote a book, people, he wrote a book called The Cross and the Lynching Tree. It's an extremely heavy book. It's really heavy. But he has this interview, well, not so much this interview, he's speaking, I should say, about his book. And he's taking questions from the audience. I'm going to play a really brief clip. What I want you to do is just listen and write down anything that resonates, anything that sticks out from what James H. Cone is saying, and what does this have to say about tactics. Folks on Zoom, can you hear me okay? Folks on Zoom, can you hear me all right? Awesome. Cool. Great. So James H. Cone, speaking about the role of the arts and tactics responding to his book, The Cross and the Lynching Tree, and we are writing down anything that resonates, anything that sticks out to us from what James H. Cone is saying. Oh yeah, and the audience member is talking about how she gave his book to her daughter, and yeah, so that's sort of the concept. The Cross and the Lynching Tree.
And so I gave my daughter the book to read. And she said, how can a black woman reading this book, and how can the people knowing this, growing in enough children, they must have deep faith. They must believe better will come. And I'm not sure. I don't know what to tell her, even though I do believe better will come. What do you think?
Well, I think we must not let conventions have the last word. We cannot do that. And hope is found in resistance. It's not only you working against it. There's a power, a mystery in this world that's also real. And it's found in power. You know, we've been enslaved, we've been there, we've been Jim Crow, we've been shot down in the street, in prison, but we're still here. And our movement, civil rights, black freedom movement, has inspired people all over the world. Our music has inspired people all over the world. You can't go anywhere. When they were singing, when the Berlin Wall came down, they were singing, "We shall overcome." When the Filipinos were fighting against Marcos, marching, they were singing, "We shall overcome." And in Tiananmen Square, they were singing, "We shall overcome." We have inspired the world, a little minority, a nobody. Don't let them, you know, I write about it, but I ain't gonna let them power. They ain't gonna defeat you. And as long as you got your voice, as long as you can bear witness against it, there is hope. Don't get that. That's why I go to church. Ain't gonna get much else there. Just a little hope.
Absolutely. James H. Cone speaking about his word in the context of the cross and the lynching tree. What I want you to do is turn to a neighbor. What are some things that you heard that resonated from what James H. Cone was saying? Anything that you noticed, anything that you heard, take a few more moments to check in. Yeah, I know. I think.
Sure, it's already happened already. Now, but the hope is found in resistance. But I love the first phrase that the natures that the rest.
As soon as I
I just did. course in called it Living, Making and Celebrating Black History through Theater. And there's all these movements that were happening even in the 20s and 30s about artists that were making theater. Even, as we did, we also took over blackface. And there were black women that had companies of about 100 people that they were then producing in 7th century. So that thing about you're gonna make money off it, we can make some money off of that too, which is like to think about it. But they were being captured. People were buying houses because they had this income. Yeah, nothing great thing that was made, but they were taking it back. And then when white folks took the blackface back, then the white folks had to know what we did. Right, but you don't take it up like as a joke. Okay, we're gonna take that and we're going in as well. Now what happens? So right, they have to take another culture. Because they're all artists. Right. Like all the time. I mean, everybody is around the world.
All right, powerful people. All right, y'all, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. I love the conversations that are going on. Love the conversations that are going on. So we just heard from James H. Cone, Black Power theologian of the 1960s, came out with numerous books. The Cross and the Religion Tree, came out with, I believe, a book called Martin and Malcolm. All kinds of insight on what role does the Black church and Black spirituality. Came out with a book on blues, play in getting free. So let's start with folks on Zoom. Do you want to share out anything that resonated from what James H. Cone is saying? Things that you heard?
I had a little bit of trouble hearing, but I think that's just the internet. I heard something like, when the Berlin Wall came down, they were singing "We Shall Overcome," and then something about when the Filipinos did something, they were singing, they were doing the same thing. And so I was hearing something like, you know what? They do always be singing our song every time. Because I can't think of a single protest song that's ever been created that wasn't written by a Black person. Maybe sometimes about Dylan, I don't know. Like, so I thought a lot about that. And I wrote something down like, he gave the world their breath, their voice. The theme seems to be Black folk gave America its voice. And so that's kind of what I came up with from what I heard.
Absolutely. The ways an occupied people give a nation its voice to live up to its ideals, right? It's powerful stuff. Hope is found in resistance, right? Absolutely. Let's open it up. Things that stuck out, things that resonated from what James H. Cone is saying. He said a lot. Powerful stuff. I'm gonna go to Rio.
There is something like, there's a few things, but I liked how he kind of emphasized what he was saying, look at us, quote unquote, these nobodies, these minorities.
Yeah.
I don't think he was saying that as he believes that.
Right.
By the standards of which these lectures, called us, it's look what we're doing. So, just look at how powerful that is. And hope is found in resistance. Those two things.
absolutely. Speaking from a normative gaze, those who thought, we were a nobody minority have actually, our voice has been around the world. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else? You said a lot, James H. Cone, things that stuck out. Yeah, I'm gonna go back there.
Things that stuck out to me, they all kind of go along together. The big one was Can't Let the Lynchers Have the Last Word.
Yeah, Can't Let the Lynchers Have the Last Word.
Big on me. And then stuff that kind of aligned with that, kind of like I spoke earlier, We Shall Overcome. Kind of wrote down some quotes that you said, they ain't gonna defeat me. Yeah. Something that all kind of follow along with that. Can't let them have the last word.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Anything else that stuck out? And it's okay to repeat what someone has already said. What about it stuck out to you? Yeah. Say that one more time. Mm-hmm. Yes. But yeah, I love that you made that connection.
He said we inspired the world, and so that kind of just reminded me that, like our rioting versus, their rioting, you know, we gotta get bashed for it and they get praised for it, making a difference.
Absolutely. Tactics, the way we use what's available to us, doing what we can with what we have. Anything else that stuck out to folks? James H. Cone, Black Power Theologian, things that you heard that stuck out. How about from what the woman in the beginning was saying?
Yeah.
Because there was a woman in the beginning that was saying stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. With the faith and hope.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that scripture and teaching to them on faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Yeah.
So that goes hand in hand in knowing that you have to have faith and you have to have hope. Go hand in hand and it goes across everything, whether you're religious or not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It becomes part of your being.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say one thing. I think one thing too, just when she was explaining how the child aspect of it, like what the child said, I think that's important to take note. What little kids say, just plain out, because usually they just speak, what I'm saying, just straight from their hearts. And I think about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that you use the word mystery.
Mystery.
What systems of domination do is tells you that you know everything. You don't. In order to get to that space, the spirit, you have to submit to what you don't know. Absolutely. You have to know that there's a mystery. Also, we talked about the music. The music activates people. I've heard people, including Brother El Hajj Shabazz, critiquing Black people for singing "We Shall Overcome."
Yes.
But the music is not just words. These are intentions. These are vibrations. These are hopes. These are dreams that are being spoken out and activated and gathering and momentum around those words.
Absolutely. The song of the movement. We need songs in the movement. For that Sankofa. It's never taboo to go back and get what is at risk of being left behind. Absolutely. We need the songs. Absolutely. Anything else that's left out?
When was this recording made?
So that's a really good question. I think 2017. James H. Cone passed away in 2018. So it was made right before he passed away.
And when were his books written?
His books were written in the 60s and up until 2007.
So that's my point. It's back around.
Yeah.
Yes.
How to spell his last name? Is it C-O-H?
C-O-N James H. Cone. Yeah. C-O-N-E is his last name. James H. Cone. Yeah. Powerful. Thank you. Powerful. Absolutely. Last reflections on James H. Cone, things that resonated, things that stuck out, things
I like the fact that song was all around the
international. Yeah.
In other words, we are activating international community.
Yeah.
Not just people in the United States. That's right. But people in China, people everywhere.
Yeah.
With our movement. In other words, we're not the nobodies.
Yeah.
We're somebody.
Absolutely. The struggle brings a sight of hope. You know, before we move on quickly, there's this quote that I keep on coming back to, again by Roberto Unger. Hope isn't the cause of action; it's the consequence of action. Right? You might not go to a protest because you're hopeful, because it's heavy. There's a lot to grieve, right? But when you go to a protest, after you leave, that action results in hope, because you weren't alone. There were other people there, and that can't be overlooked, right? Hope may not be the cause of action, but it's definitely the consequence of action, because you inspire people, right? So let's return to our conversation on tactics. I'm gonna pass out a brief handout. It's not too long. Just gonna pass out a brief handout. I'm gonna drop it in the chat one time real quick. So what is the handout? The handout is some thoughts by Saul Lezinski, who was a community organizer in the 1930s. He has a lot to say about tactics. He wrote this book that was pretty popular. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Yeah. Saul Lezinski, 1930s. He wrote a book called Rules for Radical. It's pretty popular. What I want you to do is just sit in your clusters, read it, circle anything that sticks out. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Tactics being defined as doing what you can with what you have. I'm going to drop the handout in the chat in a moment. Saul Lezinski, we're just going to sit with it, underline anything that sticks out, anything that you notice, take your time with it, and then we'll share out. Can you see it? Cool. And then if someone could read to Donna, that'd be great. Okay, cool. Oh, and right now, just read the first section, just for the first paragraph. Right now, just read the first paragraph on tactics, and then we'll move on to the second. Circling anything that sticks out.
I think my top is black. That one's brown. My top is brown. Huh? I had chai. This one is mine. My top was black.
Whether it's full or whether they chose to do that, but I always go in the thing about verbs and what's the action, organized, create, conceal, right, raise, clamor, never go outside, just go outside. Oh, I got right about here. Oh, so it's like, I always think about playwrights or writers, usually whatever verb they making a choice, that's how it's always, that's how it's that's the language is also, but take it in, but then obviously you're engaged in this action, put in an action. Your leader? Okay.
And whenever you're in a place to just share what stuck out in your cluster, in your group, just share what stuck out. What did you notice? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Insights.
Right. But you don't know. I think when you said that, it's also because sometimes right. And I love this. People not have all to that's an engagement. That's the last one. People don't have all. So it's just like our day.
Take a few more moments now to see the team along.
Like the end of the day and the plane and you have a different experience. That's just a kid. That's just like so this awareness, context, which is when you're or I challenge to write a manifesto. These are the things that have to be in, and I can write yes, right. Well, we have we're going to let you know at the top. It's going to be a constructive alternative. Now we're going to talk about because we're all, you know, how do you
all right, powerful people. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. Yes, we talk about tactics.
Bring it out. Yes.
All right, powerful people. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. So today we're talking about tactics, doing what we can with what we have. We just looked at a handout I saw. Lazinski from the 1930s wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. Before we dive into the content, can someone just read it out loud real quick? Nice and loud. Whoever wants to read it, I'm going to go Rio. Nice and loud whenever you're ready.
Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky. Tactics mean doing what you can with what you have. First, the eyes. If you have organized a vast, mass-based people organization, you can parade it visibly before the enemy and openly show your power. Second, the ears. If your organization is small in numbers, conceal the members in the dark or raise a din and clamor that will make the listeners believe that your organization numbers have many more than it does. So, the second rule, never go outside the experience of your people. The third rule is wherever possible, go outside of experience of the enemy. You want to cause confusion, fear, and retreat. The fourth rule is Make the enemy live up to their own book of rules. You can kill them with this. The sixth rule is a good tactic is one your people will enjoy. If your people are not having a ball doing it there, if your people are not having a ball doing it, there is something wrong with the tactic. The 12th rule, the price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative.
Absolutely, absolutely. Things that resonated, there was a lot in that. Things that resonated, lines, words that stuck out, things that brought up questions perhaps. Yeah, we got more. Oh, we got more.
But I underline when your people will enjoy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of like from the other team you're getting some depression or just anything negative, and it's like so from the inside if you're doing something enjoyable, it's
Absolutely, absolutely. And we can go back to our list, right? How many of those things were fun? How many of those things do we enjoy, right? As our tactics. Yes. Anything else that stuck out? Yeah.
The second time through, I was thinking about the price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean a successful alternative or a perfect alternative or the best alternative. It just means it's another step. And like we don't have to have the perfect utopian thing right away.
Absolutely.
It's a step on the way.
Absolutely. That's why art is so important. Because imagination. There can be something else. There is an alternative. This isn't the only way to do this. You know, absolutely. Anything else that stuck out? Tactics, all these things. Yeah.
The thing that stuck out to me was make the enemy live up to their own beliefs.
Yeah.
That was stood out.
Yeah. Say more about that. Why did that stick out to you?
Just kind of like making them. It's almost when I read that, how I interpreted it was kind of like, you know, you say treat people the way you want to be treated in a sense, so making them live by their own was kind of like almost like a mirror effect. How I look at it, so kind of makes them go to
Absolutely. And we see that in the Black radical tradition, right? The highlighting of hypocrisy. You know, it's a way to get the word out. You know, hello world, they're not living up to their own book of rules, right? It's a way to highlight a gap. You know, James Baldwin, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. You're not living up to your own book of rules, right? So that's a tactic, right, to help get the word out about things. Absolutely.
I just wanted to echo on that. Like that stuck out to me too, and it reminded me of like the art of war, like those
Yeah.
mentalities.
Absolutely. Let me go right in.
First eyes and second ears, like sticking out to me, that's like, you know, you can have a plan, and then you see something or you hear something, you say, hold on, let me go back to the drawing board and figure something out. You know, I think, you know, seeing is really like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. The senses, what you see, hear, taste, touch. These are the ways experiences, right? You know, the eyes, you know, starting with, you know, our senses. Folks on Zoom. Anything that stuck out to you?
Word. This person's dope for many reasons. I took a lot. The first thing that really hit me was the senses, and a lot about recent organizing, like not just like that I've seen lately makes so much more sense now. Because I think about like Linda Sarsour and like all the other folks, the only name I can remember right now, forgive me, but like back when Kavanaugh was going through his Senate confirmation, and then something else, whatever else happened, I forget. But they would be up in the chamber, and it would only be about like 4 or 5 of them, but they would be screaming, and they would be like screaming as you dragged them out, and they would never stop yelling. They would never let you forget what they were there for. So I thought a lot about that, and how organizing can always be customized to what you have. So again, like tying back to the like doing what you can with what you have. Like there's never, and to that effect, right, then if that's the case, if you can always do something with what you have, if there's always a tactic, then in that case, there's no reason ever to not create a revolution because there's always a way to do it. I think sometimes it's just more so about paying attention to the moment and what that moment needs in terms of what kind of tactics. But like, I'm hearing a lot about hope and things like that. And so in that universe, it took me a minute to understand that last sentence is a successful attack. The price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. Yeah. And I was like, and then I was like, well, simply that sounds like it just means have a backup plan. I'm always about plans. And so I love that a lot because structure, I feel like something that can often be missing from organizing is structure. I think I found in my experience that people are not, I don't even know what to say, but I've run into some, I guess, obstacles or challenges bringing structure to organized space in terms of like plans, evaluation, reflection, like, etc. And so that, for me, kind of rang that bell for me, but, it could be about something else. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. A lot of great stuff. Definitely
good stuff. I would recommend this book, Rules for Radicals. All this people go right. Is that it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just like reading the words themselves, is that it's also action. I mean, the verbs that he's actually using in here are about action. Yeah. And I'm assuming that you all did some fixing of which rules, because it went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 6 to 12. Me, that's something I pay attention to as well. Like, so I love the jump. It's like, what does that mean? But the successful attack part means, what do we want when we change that? Because I think that's a lot of times that happens. Like, this isn't working. I want to break it down, and then what do we want? I want to be able to go in with something. And the other thing that came up as we were talking is, if all this we're responding to what we're seeing is going on, what else is going on? What are we not seeing? Or just having that awareness that they're also doing something else that might be just pulling our attention.
Stay ahead.
Yeah, how do we stay ahead of that? And it's also about that other thing, going back to the awareness about the context that we're even having our disruption in. Like if it's raining and cold, you're going to get a different kind of participation if it's warm and hot, and also how people are moving forward. So just having that as something that you inspire people with, like in spite of, or just being aware of it.
Absolutely, and I love that you highlighted the constructive alternative, because how do we not fall for a bag of tricks, right? How do we not fall into traps that at the end of our idea, once it's completed, we are still reinforcing systems or harming each other, or all of the like. So yeah, it's very important. I'm gonna go right there, nice and loud. Yeah. Yeah.
It forces you to ask questions about what you see and what you hear, and it forces you to have an opinion.
Absolutely. 100%.
You talk low, so it's gonna run to you.
100%. What do you do with what you have? Absolutely. So, in any other
Well, I'll tell you what I'm getting.
Yeah.
I'll say, how does this apply to what's going on now?
Yeah.
With the changing of the police department, and how is this going to be able to be used in the tactics of changing what's going on now in today's society?
Yeah. I so appreciate that you brought that up, because that goes into our next thing that we're about to do. Before we do that thing, can we just shake our hands real quick? Shake our hands, roll your shoulders, get grounded again. So let's return to our large notepads. And we are creative and artists, but we're also community organizers, right? We also bring people together. So let's concrete these tactics a little bit. So, and we're going to use the imagination to do this. So what I want you to do in your cluster groups is do a little event planning. Dream. Plan an event, a hypothetical event that you think the Twin Cities needs right now. Right? Give it a name. Is it free? Think about all the tactics. If it's a clothing exchange, what time is it at? You know, if it's a fundraiser, you know, what are the funds going to? Dream with your clusters, plan an event, right? So we thought about a lot. Think about the tactics that Saul mentioned. How are they employed? Folks on Zoom just dream about a 2-hour or, you know, however long event. Just do some dreaming. What's the event? Why do you feel like this is needed in the Twin Cities right now? Think about it, dream about it, feel about it.
Stop it. You know, that kind of hope everybody. And then all of a sudden, you need to right. Because that's what people get attracted to. It's like, oh yeah, we know that. And then all of a sudden you're confused with like something. Yeah. So when I'm just aware of this, we're still in this COVID. So what does that mean? Because you can be an artist.
Is there child care? Is it accessible?
So like it can happen. So sometimes people plan just one thing, but what if there's all different ways that people can participate. You know, so I can't come on Thursday, but I can just Saturday. Yeah, availability and access.
So please meet outside.
I feel like when people have a lot of money, they don't really care about something. So rather than there's one side, I think it is big savings better for the better part. It's the best for people to go. Maybe they're down bad, you come on the train, you come on the train. And then
I wasn't with that. So I thought it was killing. Then I thought about moments like because there's a lot of noise right now. I think that as someone I feel without silence, there's no way to integrate all of these happening. Things are always moving, like we're like this. You never have a moment to actually recognize where you are in this now, what is new, what is not new. So I love the idea of Black healing. And
so they're reading about
I've been reading about the word free. Nothing enough is truly free. Everything has some type of energetic exchange. That doesn't mean it's like money or capital. Like you are coming forward to bring and receive something. Like this is something that you have to bring your whole heart into this space. In this country. And not as this space. But I do love that idea of Black people contribute financially to this.
they might be the football players.
Think about promotion. How do you promote it? How do you promote it? Is there a virtual option?
schools and organizations. And it's like I said, other kind of invitation. Right, yeah. Primary. The seniors. So it's but we're always sort of interesting the theme. Yes. I love that. Yes, oh yeah, I think it's definitely you're gonna need.
What's the timeline of the event? Is this an event that can happen in the next 6 weeks? Do you need, or in the next 2 weeks? Why is this needed in the Twin Cities?
Okay, go. There's a little research we got to do. Okay.
Think about, do you have a budget? Are you paying performers? Are you paying
which songs, but also, yeah, right. Yeah. Music and sensibility, and then it goes, you know, because yeah, you've got sites so we can also accessible. That's a huge one. Yeah. Right. It's a run. Those that want to, there's lots. So that can be quite a fundraiser if people get paid. You're right, you end up getting paid. That people can raise money by how many per mile that they run to get which I've never been. Right. Yeah. Sounds like a scavenger. Right. Loaded it up. Right, so that's what that could be right. So there's documents, you know, like there's a freedom. Whoa. And so those can be set up because they're like kids and quotes are taken from different historians, like activists and leaders and poets.
And everybody had a say. Right. And if we needed anything done, we did it.
Activists, artists, statesmen, statespeople, you know, like Shirley Chisholm. Ida B. Wells has That'd be well.
It's a passion for us.
Well, etc. etc. This is a huge event that we gotta meet 10 security. There is chapters already here somewhere.
Did I have to connect with you? Here in Minnesota?
Man,
We don't have
private.
No rush at all.
Probably the part before. So there's some civic, city relationships. Or transportation. We have to figure out how to do community aid as opposed to just community. We have the cities that are being part of this. So there is also this connection to the native community because there's the ground that we're on, so there's some sort of acknowledgement that happens as it's running up. Yes. Right. Remember names of the whole thing. Going to get a little prince, a little Jim King.
We are now on a breakout, and the event or the prompt is to create an event in Minnesota that you believe the people need at this time. What does it look like? What is the name? Is there childcare? Is there a fee associated? What type of activities will be happening? Is it music related? Will there be activities going on? What is that event that you believe the community need at this time? So that is the prompt that the breakout groups are now creating.
Yeah, so it's going to be like an actor, facilitator.
Even just utilizing organizers, utilizing angel investors, working together to
Actors, musicians, facilitators. So if it is on the north, side, is it starting with the green? Yeah.
I want to say yes, but I also feel like this is
like and no, broadening and we're oh, so you know those factories that are doing the processing of materials that are where the river is, and all the factories. That's just kind of, I don't want to say. Yeah. Yeah, somewhere along the.
All right, powerful people. All right, poets and artists.
Okay. The reward is up to you. I'm tired. You have a couple months of plan. There you go.
Lastly, I will add, do you have a date for your event? A date.
Yep. This is crazy. We got it.
I love it.
We're done.
Okay.
We just need like $2,000.
We got a lot of resources. All right. There's resources available. All right. Absolutely. All right, powerful people. So let's start to pitch our events and speak about them. These are the first steps in bringing the imagination to life. I'm going to start with our Zoom people. Yeah, just sharing out any sort of dreams that you have for the event. What is it called? Who is it for? The tactics that are used in the event.
You're talking to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Okay, but I think the name's cool, so I might keep it to myself, but it's something like Creation Circle, Glitter Creation Circle, Black Creation Circle. I feel like it would be cool if it was like 5 to 8 sessions, like either weekly or bi-weekly, that could be virtual or in person / both. And it would be like a support group, but it would be like a craft circle at the same time to specifically focus on combating anxiety, stress, and anger. For me, I've been watching from not necessarily the sidelines, but from above in a way what has happened in Minneapolis, which is a place that I still very feel connected to. And I see a lot of that, rightfully so. And weirdly, I've been kind of going through a parallel sort of like moment of like, okay, death. And thing like just in that same arena. And so I think about the things that, about the things that I was good at as like a teaching artist, and like what could I share with other people who are in a different place, with a different catalyst, but we're all coming to this place of we're angry, we're stressed, we have anxiety, whether we know it or not, all these different things, what can we do? That's literally why I started doing embroidery. And so I thought about like sessions where it could be like, okay, this week we're doing knitting, and then this week we're doing like collage, and then this week we're doing like, we're gonna like make our own fidget spinners, and then like this week we're gonna bake. Like all the things that are like soft, and it's okay if you, like for example, if you're working with paper or something like that, it's okay if you ball that up, it up and feel angry at it. That's like a piece of paper is a safe place to be angry. A ball of yarn is a safe place to express anger. And so I thought about bringing all that together, and it'd be like a support group in the sense of like you could have advocates there, and people could be talking and knitting and like whatever. And I feel like that's such a Black thing. Like I feel like, you know, if you think about like getting your hair done or like what have you, or like your grandmother who quilted her whole life or whatever, or like the hand knitted sweater you got from your aunt, you know, God knows where. You know, I thought about all those things and putting them into a space for people to access. Like makeup being one, nails being one, you know, and then having practical applications. So like we could teach people about nail art, or we could also teach people how to like successfully put on the press-on kit that you find in Walgreens. Like all of these different things. Like we could teach people how to like, you know, embroider, but we could also teach people how to like sew patches onto their clothes, or like sew a button onto their clothes when they lost one or something. So making it practical, right? Like practical, real life, real-time applications, stress, anger, anxiety relief, and all of that kind of being things that are in the Black tradition and doing it the way that we do.
Absolutely. Black Creation Circle bi-weekly. Are there any questions for the logistics of this event? Any questions around any thoughts, comments, feedback? Black Creation Circle. Absolutely. I think that's important. Absolutely. Bi-weekly Black Creation Circle. I love it. Let's open it up for folks in this space. Any group that wants to go first, dreaming about an event that's needed locally here in the Twin Cities. Any group wants to go first. Keep us off one time. Whoever wants to kick it off. Nice and loud, nice and loud. What's the name of your event? When is it happening? Who is it for? The Big Barbecue, all right.
And basically, it's a free event. People can own food, bring their own grills, and then we have like a stage set up so that there would be performers. There would be like maybe an open mic night, maybe some karaoke. The goal of the event really is to just have us come together, bring some relaxation and some peace, and also to have fun. And then of course there would be like vendors selling art, selling things they made. Basically to support like local artists, and then also support each other. So yeah.
Absolutely, the Big Barbecue. I love it. Are there any questions for the logistics of the event? When you said how much will it cost? Is it free? All ages? Any questions?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like the price of it, is it free or is it not?
It would be free. It would be free.
Free, you're thinking like free and like donation based too, so you don't want to leave sexual artists, stuff like that. But otherwise, free or donation based kind of helps more.
And did y'all have a date?
July.
We had July, but we didn't have a set date. We things the summertime vibe. So I never said July 10th.
Any location?
I was thinking something like a park, because there's so many parks and lakes in Minnesota, so why not use the space?
I love it. The Big Barbecue is happening. Who wants to go next? Dreaming about events that are in the Twin Cities.
Past, present, future.
All right.
It's basically like a game circle for the community. And where we're thinking is like a big space for one that is done on the suggestion like and we're thinking like when August would be the start of it, but this would be like a seasonal continuing thing. It would go on every few months, come and gather in the studio. And we're thinking who, like celebrities, city council members, organizers, artists, teachers, politicians, they will read stories about the past, present, and create the future, like read the stories, taking turns. They would read to the everyday people in the community in here and giving the people as well opportunity to speak, like say a word or sentence or word, and just compare.
And if we pick like on the lottery number like that, everybody who would have one, two, three, if it was that celebrity, one, two, different people,
Zoom online available for people that want to join in. We're also thinking about utilizing like organizers and angel investors to get what we need as far as like catering food and in-kind donation.
Yeah, in-kind donations, and if you made money or whatever, and you made some surplus, it goes in charitable,
People are all on that.
and everybody already sees it.
This will be a free event. Yeah.
Absolutely. Any questions around the logistics of that event, past, present, future, meeting circle? Absolutely. Appreciate that. Y'all thinking of some good events. These are some good events. I would like to go to these events. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got a really crazy scheme.
So ours is huge, I just want to say.
There you go.
It's massive, ridiculously massive, and we just decided it has to go to 2022.
All right.
Because there's a massive amount of planning that has to go into this. I have the name. The name is. Look at that. Is it?
This is perfect.
Oh, this is perfect.
So, it's,
So there's an okay. So what we wanted to do was have an outdoor event, and this is going to be on Juneteenth, but would also celebrate it, sort of like we kick off by music like from Prince. So we have a foundation that's a homegrown thing. Liberation is what we're really talking about, and using that music as a way to party like it's 1999.
All right.
We do that every day. So we're tapping into people's sensibilities. We want to look at what the demographics might be, the location, availability, and accommodations. So there's activities that still have to be created. And we're looking at a larger thing. So yes, there's marketing, promotion, but that can come from within the community about who you're contacting, how you're meeting them. What we want to build is an underground railroad from the north side to Chandler. So that people are actually looking for freedom papers. Now, so the freedom papers are things that are written by Black men and women that are historic, like Ida B. Wells or Shirley Chisholm or W. Du Bois, and you have to figure out how do you get to the next place around the information that you're also getting some knowledge and some history and some moving. Donations, yes. I love building corporations because they need to just give us some money. But then there's also in-kind, like my in-kind support. But also talking about, okay, we need Metro Transit to be a part of this, the transport to be our train, and just like it's time. We can also get budget rental cars, say we need some cars to transport people with vans, who like have ways of access. And we know we have to do things like policing and escorts. So how do we rethink that about when we're having a public event? Like how are we also taking care of each other? There's actors, there's facilitators, it's engaging people from all different types of communities to participate. A lot of organizing. A lot of organizing. It's going to take a year. To hopefully start on the north side, like maybe probably heard the Caprias, come to South Minneapolis, where the Powder Farm, and then we figured out how this party is going to move to Paisley Park, because that's the celebration and the party you get to have. Right, so, doing community stories and what we would bring about how do you make this a theatrical event is a large part of it, because this is such a rich performance community that we can get people to you can volunteer your time because you're giving out to this huge event that's celebrating this Black aesthetic. So that we come from the river basin that we would start on the north side where all those chemicals are being ground away, which is killing our people. So we're moving away from that to a place where we are then owning the landscape, which is on native ground. So that's the foundation of knowing that this is where we're from. and then how we're actually owning it all the way down the river. All of it. And that's all.
Absolutely. Any questions, thoughts about that event? How people will plug into it? Any questions on logistics? Remind me of the name of what would be called?
Oh yeah, from Juneteenth to 1999, Freedom Train.
Okay, Freedom Train. Juneteenth to 1999. I love that. Appreciate that. Any questions on that? Great. I'm gonna go right here. Nice and loud.
Okay, so we were kind of a little bit with the barbecue, and we also thought our event could take place on Juneteenth. We are not a group who has spent the time on logistics right now. We're still dreaming, so just dream with us. So we were talking about a Black family reunion on Juneteenth. Okay. And we have a portion of the day, starts like in the afternoon, with an opening ritual that establishes the space and focuses our energy. And then we have a time for skill sharing, like you could learn double dutch or practice double dutch. You could learn break dance, writing, graffiti, photography, visual art. You can do some yoga, get some like body energy work, nutritional healing, learn cooking, like culturally specific foods, and prayer circles. And then the centerpiece of the event is a family dinner. And it's gonna be like big old tables, just ginormous tables, and everybody sits down together. And it will begin with a moment of silence and kind of reflection. And then guided conversations and making connections just about where we're at right now as a community, maybe talking about our needs. But also, like, the main focus of the event is about joy, so the conversations diverge from that recipe too. And then the evening portion, we have more about like showing off our culture and celebrating that. So we could have a double dutch competition. We could have line dancing, a soul train line, and just like general performances. And then it has to be free for everybody. We were talking about how we could get some some of our less melanated kinfolk to pay for it. And it had to be outside, or at least part of it.
Black family reunion during Juneteenth. It sounds like some great events. Absolutely. Anything like that for the Juneteenth Black family reunion?
I did think a little bit about logistics because I was like, who gonna pay for this? So like, she just said, what's your pronoun? Okay, right. She just said, yes, getting people who are invited allies to promote and get this event going, but also grants, having them write grants. And also, too, I push back against the word free just a little bit because I'm talking from a spiritual standpoint, everything in the world requires some type of energetic exchange. So in order to come here, you have to bring some type of skill that you're going to share. You have to bring some type of performance that you're going to bring. You got to bring a thought or intention. And if you are, empty, you're going to bring us your heart. Like, you're going to let us know that you don't have anything to receive right now, but then in the future, there's going to be some type of something.
Yes. Absolutely. How many of you all tried to plan an event and had a hard time finding resources, financial resources, right? So these are some things that when we think about the barter system or mutual aid or other ways where we can, support each other to hold, spaces like this. And really know that the cooperative is a space where we're trying to also uplift the community's ideas for events too. So this is great. Last but not, was that everybody?
Yeah.
That everybody? Awesome. So yeah.
I just have this is a question that I always live in, dealing with it in some other spaces. Is we live in this capitalist society. We're not going to escape that. But it does have an effect on us and how we live. So how do we can't say we're not going to do that because also that's another set of resources that we're not availing ourselves. Now, I don't have the solution or the way that we address it, but I can't pretend that it's not fair because it affects how I bought my clothes and my laundry detergents, and I got on. Someone brought me off in their car. So there's something about that that's a real thing because the harder system is really going back to this barter system, which I think is something that we have to relearn. Because we maybe as artists or as organizers might have it, but the sister who's got her 2 kids and is trying to get some formula or trying to get those diapers is thinking about how do I get that money for them? Or how do I get this food? So I'm just going to put those things together so that we can dream big about it. Yes.
I got something to say about that.
Yeah.
When my son was small, we had neighbors, and they didn't have daycare like they have it now.
Yeah.
Where you could drop your kids off. So we used to work with each other, and we would help each other as moms and do things with each other. Like I would watch the kids Monday, Tuesday, the other one would watch it Wednesday, Thursday, and it would be like a kid of 9, maybe 9 or 10 children, and they all were bitty babies. So we took turns with each other's kids and families and meals and stuff like that. Or they go out. So we go back to neighbors helping neighbors or people helping each other.
So I think both of those things can be in play. I'm not saying that it has to be one or the other.
Yes.
Because we've been doing those things forever. My grandmother did everybody's hair. She had a hair salon. So, but that's where people came together. That's what I grew up knowing. So I see that. But I also know her husband had to get the money for her to buy the product. So that's just what my old brain goes to. It's like,
And then that's when people start trading things.
right. Well, and exactly. So, and where are they coming from? It's like, so what's our ownership of the products that we make and what we do with them? Because that's another training that we have to almost rethink as a culture, because we have this great $1 billion access, because how do we spend money and how do we reframe that? How do we spend money among ourselves? Because everybody's, I'm going to stop.
It's totally all right. Do we have any recent memories of mutual aid? Any recent memories of mutual aid where we were giving something or there was an exchange happening where money didn't, wasn't from the right?
What I was talking about earlier, last June, actually, me and 6 other people formed a People Protection Coalition. So we used to, we had like drives, I believe, what park? I think it was Matthews. We used to hold drives there. So the whole thing was we never had it funded. I think, we had the only thing that was funded was donation-based wise. So we had like a Patreon, but before that, we just had people come and pretty much donate when you had clothes or food or something like that, kind of donate that, and then we kind of drive around to different encampments and donate the food, donate the clothes, or the encampments are nearby, people come up and grab what they needed and go from there. And then any money that we got from like our Patreon or anybody like Cash App, whatever like that, we actually ended up getting like a little short school bus, repainting that. Wow. We had like People Protection Coalition on the side. Yep, so we use that. Any money we got from there, if we didn't get enough donation food-wise, we would go to the store ourselves and then go buy food, put it on the bus. Pretty much we just go around and actually talk to the people in the encampments, figure out what they needed. So if you want hand warmers, if you want heaters, stuff like that, whatever the funds we had, we try to kind of get what they needed and then drive back around and drop them off and just kind of keep moving around South Minneapolis and then start making our way to St. Paul and stuff too. So that's the experience I had in the past summer, fall, and still working on trying to keep that going as well. So
People's Protection Coalition.
Something a little more personal. So, when I was like first born, like my mom, she didn't have money for like all the stuff she needed, and so at the job, all the coworkers they like susu. So they would put money in, every week they would put some money in, and then somebody would give the money, 2 weeks or once a month.
Any other recent memories of mutual aid? Any other recent memories of mutual aid? Absolutely. Yeah, I think these are the important conversations because sometimes we need to remind ourselves that these sites exist, that the People's Protection Coalition exists, that we already have this sort of equipment needed to build this sort of community power, right? Any other thoughts before we move on to the next thing? So, for the rest of the day, so we have a panel discussion at 3 o'clock. That's going to be phenomenal. You don't want to miss it. We have a panel discussion at 3 o'clock, and then we have quilt making at 4 o'clock, right after the panel discussion. We're actually going to make the quilts. Yesterday we saw the quilts on the floor, but now we're actually going to sew them and make them, and that's going to be facilitated by the Million Artist Movement. So that's going to be at 4 o'clock. You don't want to miss this panel discussion at 3 o'clock. Right now we're going to have lunch for you, and we're literally waiting for it to show up. And it's going to be pizza luce, and it's going to be some good food. And then we're going to have a panel at 3 o'clock. You don't want to miss any of this. So feel free to talk amongst yourselves, and I'll let y'all know as soon as lunch gets here. Stretch it out. It's
We are now breaking for lunch. There may be some videos played during this hour, but feel free to stick around. There's videos in the meantime.
Because that's a whole other agenda, you know, and a way of indoctrinating people into the system. I'm just trying to make it out of it. So, I get really good at that.
If you're just tuning in, we are now breaking for lunch. Feel free to stick around. It is a half an hour break.
that you're trying to reify again and again. But there's another way to think. I teach theater, and I teach African American theater history, community-based theater, and I'm also teaching a course right now called hip hop. So, as I say, I'm the and I also directed and act there with the school. Yes. Oh my God, they're the best. Because either they're fearless or they're so cool as when they discover that they can do this type of thing. It's just amazing to watch them. Like, oh wow, you get to do that. They do. They say the truth. Right. They can tell you the truth when you want to. Oh my God. Yes. Don't take care. Just not really so good, you can go sing it too. The parade yesterday. Taking care of them.
We're just enjoying some music during lunch hour now.
socks. I'm not getting socks. School, man, I said something. Well, these pants are fleece. Fleece. I'm gonna
Work it.